This program is brought to you by the Media Liberty Alliance Foundation in cooperation with OBBM Network TV, bringing citizen-led, creative local media to the forefront of local communities to foster a greater understanding of constitutional liberty and appreciation of what makes us truly free, starting with you and me.
The Zach Rateliff Show is brought to you by Mortgage Financial in Texarkana, Exceed Health Clinic on Mall Drive in Texarkana, Elmwood Custom Goods, and Church on the Rock, Texarkana. That's churchontherock.org.
New York's legislature voted to get rid of the terms mother and father and replace them with gestating parent and non-gestating parent. They want to be inclusive of gender-confused people, but isn't it time we stop this madness and let science, backed by biblical truth, guide public policy? God created us male or female is a fact. To deny this hurts gender-confused people more than it helps them. I'm Pastor John Miller. Visit me at churchontherock.org.
Hello and welcome to the Zach Rateliff Show. I'm Zach. This is Hunter.
Morning.
What's up, dude?
Nothing much. How are you?
Good to see you. Thanks for being a friend of the show.
Absolutely.
Always enjoy it when you're on here. Well, Independence Day is upon us.
Yep.
And I'll start with reading some of the Declaration, and then we can kind of get into it. I feel like this is in your wheelhouse. Like if there was ever a show, it would either be this or guns.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And in the perfect scenario, both.
Yeah.
I mean, all right. So here's the. Hunter has advised me probably not to read the entire Declaration, and then that's probably a good thing. But here's the Declaration of Independence. First couple of paragraphs, probably. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God, let's remember that phrase, entitle them, a decent respect to opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator, and with certain and unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which we know was changed from property.
John Locke. That's where that originally came from.
Yeah. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles as organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing forms to which they are accustomed. And then it goes into a long train of abuses, but I just wanted to make sure to get to that.
Yeah, the long train of abuses. That was the death sentence right there. Yeah. After that.
Yeah. Once you go there, but first of all, what I hear is, hey, we're given these rights by God, the creator of the universe. We're going to apply it to him, and hopefully we can get this right. But in the end, or at the end of what I was reading, men are more likely just to put up with it as long as they can.
Well, historically, that's right. Yeah. I mean, I would argue it's probably the most important document ever written,
right? As
far as the development of the Western world goes, and it kind of laid the stage of what became the Constitution. He alludes to the idea of checks and balances and disbursement of powers amongst in the government.
Right.
And, a lot of that was borrowed from the Enlightenment period, going back to the early 1700s, late 1600s.
Right. And I watched a presentation, golly, and I can't remember who did it, but it was basically, it traced Declaration, then back to, the Magna Carta, and then back, and then, you could, there are 1,000 years worth of stuff in there that you can trace it all on the progression of freedom throughout history, and this is just another step in it.
Yeah, and what makes this step a lot different is because if you go back and look at like Lockean theory of politics, regarding natural rights and things like that, what makes the United States different is the advocacy of a pure republic without a monarchy. Even guys like Locke or Rousseau or Montesquieu and all these different people, these political philosophers, they all argue for natural rights and separation of powers and balances and things like that, but nobody really ever argued for democracy, or republicanism. In their minds, the best kind of government would be a monarchy with the checks being constitutional checks,
which is your House of Commons, House of Lords,
right? And the concept that Jefferson comes up with the assistance of Adams and Franklin when he wrote that is revolutionary because it advocates for something beyond that. It's not simply, the document is not there simply as a limit to this supposed benevolent king, but it's also there as a means of illustrating the social contract between people and the government. And that's really what the Constitution is. And the Declaration lays the foundation of what becomes the Constitution eventually.
Well, and even after the Declaration, then we had the Articles of, or whatever. What were they called?
Articles of Confederation.
Articles of Confederation. And we're going to go, this doesn't work. But you go back to the Declaration, hey, you're supposed to throw off a government if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so that was the base. I don't know. I'm not a scholar on
No,
this.
that's what it, I mean, it's the duty of the people to replace governments that are ineffective. That's basically what he's saying.
Yeah.
And the articles, when the articles were created, they were created for one purpose, and that was to do the exact opposite of anything that would point to central authority. Because this terrifying concept that we have, a king, a monarchy that's dictating what's going on 3,000 miles away. We don't want to give any kind of power to anybody local. Too much power. I think Jefferson was famous for saying, what's the difference between being ruled by one tyrant 3,000 miles away or 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away? Yeah, and so there was this deep distrust for any kind of central authority, but it quickly began to realize that you really can't have a country that operates like 13 countries.
Right.
There has to be something more that binds the nation together, and you can have autonomy of states and regions, but there has to be something there that binds them together, and there has to be some machinery in there to make the government function.
Right.
And that was one of the issues with the articles. There was no method of function. They couldn't tax people. There was no regulation of trade. There was,
everybody was just doing, like you said, it was 13 separate countries.
No national army, which is, it's always wild. People, whenever I first teach this in a course, people are always just fascinated with the fact that at one time the United States had no national military. Right. It was just militia.
We just won a war, and then we're like, oh, no, we don't need that.
Yeah, and there's a reason, this terrified concept that there's some central authority ready to, and they're not completely crazy.
No.
Historically speaking, that's all governments are, right?
Yeah. Side note, leads to the Second Amendment.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, 100%. And the founders weren't stupid. And when they create the Constitution to replace the Articles, you start seeing those ideas that were originally in the Declaration being lived out. And the Constitution, for its faults, I would argue, is probably the most brilliant piece of government ever created.
Well, and here's my thing with kind of the 250th birthday.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the birthday of our form of government.
No, but it's the birthday
the birthday of freedom.
That's right. By the way,
The Zach Rateliff Show is brought to you by Mortgage Financial in Texarkana, Exceed Health Clinic on Mull Drive in Texarkana, Elmwood Custom Goods, and Church on the Rock, Texarkana. That's churchontherock.org.
Underdog Brazilian fighter Mauricio Ruffy defeated Michael Chandler at the UFC Freedom 250 fight at the White House. In his interview, he called people to give their lives to Jesus Christ. He said, Jesus saved my life, and he wants to save you from the judgment of sin and give you eternal life. So give your life to Jesus. He used his success to tell people about Jesus. We should too. I'm Pastor John Miller. Visit me at churchontherock.org.
Cato Institute did a poll. I read about it yesterday. 46% of Americans didn't know what we were celebrating on the 250th.
Really?
2,243 people were polled, and 46% didn't know what the 250th
legit
was.
If it's over, what, 1,500?
That's a lot, yeah. 2,400, yeah, something like that. Yeah. So that's a significant number. Only 53% knew it was the commemoration of the signing of the Declaration.
You know, I don't know if you know this person, but they're maybe a couple years younger than us, and they have a master's in teaching, and you know my sense of humor. And at some point years ago, something was said, and I said, and I just off the cuff said, yeah, next thing you know, somebody will kill 6 million Jews and nobody will have a problem with it. And they go, why would you say that? I go, because it's happened. They're like, that has never happened. I'm like, hold up.
Oh, the Holocaust denial.
Yeah, no. Holocaust, just didn't know about it.
Oh, complete ignorance.
Yeah, ignorance of the entire situation. I go, you know, we went to war. One of the reasons being that this was happening.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we didn't. I'm like, do you know anything about World War II and what we found over there? Like, and this person continues to go during this whole conversation, like, why are you making this up? Why would you say such horrible things? And finally I felt bad. I'm like, hey, look, because it was in front of people, you know, and I'm like, hey, we don't need to do this, but talk to me later. And like, this is real.
Yeah, as someone who has copious amounts of paper and frames on walls, myself, I can tell you that some of the most clueless people are people with copious amounts of paper on walls.
Mine are just drawings of trees and houses, you know, in crayon.
I always say, you know, the more, I have several degrees, and it just proves that I was able to sit there longer than everybody else.
Yeah.
That's all it means. You know, it doesn't mean you have common sense or anything else, you know, and that's unfortunate. It really is.
Well, but so that's why 43% of people didn't know what we're talking about for the 250th, like
46%.
46. That's wild, man.
Yeah.
That's why I pulled some facts about it and I think I kind of knew them, but so the Declaration of Independence was actually voted on July 2nd, 1776.
Yeah, it wasn't I guess you say ratified or completed, passed, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, July 4th is when they adopted the final wording.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for Jefferson to have written this thing.
You ever seen the rough copy of it?
I mean, not in person.
Have you seen a picture of the rough copy?
Yeah.
It's funny watching them line out things. And
yeah.
I think that one's the coolest one because it's such authenticity. Because the founders, we forget they were just men.
Yeah.
Yeah. We exalt them on this like kind of revered status and for good reason sometimes because they were some of the most brilliant people to ever form a government ever.
Also drank a town dry, Washington's retirement.
I like the rough copy of the Declaration because it humanizes Jefferson as someone who really. Right. It's not like he sat down and had these, like he was writing the Bible and he had these words communicated with him to the pen. You know, he had to really think about what he was writing and think about the implications for him, his posterity, and everybody else after him. And I think that watching him line out things and replace things is neat. You know,
my thought on that was he was like, I've got this much written. I'm not starting over.
Yeah.
Like scratch.
And when he wrote it, I think Jefferson. What's interesting about Jefferson is that he always felt that was one of his most paramount events of his life. Right. You know, and this is a person who was president of the United States. But I always argue, if you look at like professional athletes who are amazing in their sport, they don't always end up being the best coaches. Right. You know what I mean? They're amazing at what they do while they're in the heat, but whenever they're actually a coach, they're just not that great. And Jefferson, when he was president, he hated it. He hated being president. And what's interesting about him, what's ironic about him, is that he really preached out about central authority, but he made some of the most authoritarian decisions. I mean, he literally purchased half the country with zero oversight whatsoever.
We're just going to do
I'm
this.
pumped. I mean, we're sitting here right now and part of it. So I'm pumped, but I'm just saying. And so he hated being president so much that if you visit his grave, He doesn't even include it in his list of accomplishments on his tombstone. His grave, if I remember correctly, and some of your listeners might correct me on this, but I believe it only mentions 2 accomplishments in his life, and it is the writer of the Declaration of Independence and the founder of the University of Virginia.
Oh, wow.
And he leaves off being president of the United States as one of his accomplishments.
That's what. Yeah, I mean,
I would too.
The Louisiana Purchase, big deal.
A little bit, yeah, yeah. And we got a really good deal out of that.
What was it, $5 million?
It was pennies on the acre, and of course Texarkana specifically is sitting on the very, very edge of the Louisiana Purchase.
My family has just old swampland, right? It isn't worth anything in Shongaloo, Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And but we have passed down from generation to generation the deed from the 1800s.
Yeah.
And so, it's getting real close to, because it was originally, it was part of that territory as well.
Yeah.
And so, that's a neat thing to have.
Man, the first people to come out here and settle were,
they're wild.
I don't know. They were just like, here's some free land. What's out there? We don't know.
Yeah.
Bears.
Alligators, maybe.
Certain
bears.
death. Certain death.
Yeah. Like, you got bears and alligators? Yeah. It's going to be 90 degrees and 70% humidity.
Yeah.
You'll love it.
That's right. Yeah. But Jefferson, I mean, I think I personally believe he's one of the most brilliant men to ever pick up a pen and do anything,
right.
I think John F. Kennedy was famous for saying, I think at the, they were having some meeting, I don't know, it was a press meeting or whatever it was. It was a gathering of all the most the Nobel laureates and all these different intelligent, brilliant people for this dinner at the White House in one of these dining rooms. And he got up there, and this is JFK, obviously early on in his presidency, and he got up there and he stood up there and in front of the most brilliant human beings on earth, all collected in one room.
Right.
And he said, this is the largest gathering of intellect to ever reside in this room since Thomas Jefferson sat here by himself.
Hey, that's a lot. I mean, and just to be acknowledged like that so many years later.
Oh, no.
Is a big deal. Sorry, I had to let everybody know where it was. Yeah, this is what I'm doing. Okay, so it says only John Hancock and Charles Thomason, and I don't know, what were the 50-something guys that signed this thing?
Yeah, I remember exactly.
I'm like, I don't know Charles, but they're the only 2 that actually signed it on July 4th. 56. Most of the 56 signers added their names on August 2nd.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
And look, this is Grok, so maybe, I always say AI. You got to go verify it at times.
That's a pretty straightforward fact there.
Yeah,
I have a relative that was a signer.
Do you?
Colonel Benjamin Harrison from Virginia. He's a signer of it. Grandfather 80 times removed, whatever you want to call it.
That's still cool.
Yes, it's pretty neat. And his ancestry before him was one of the original people who came to Jamestown after it became permanent. Also, so I got a chance to go out to Jamestown.
True red-blooded.
Yeah, so I got a chance to go out to Jamestown a few years ago, and Bill Kelso, no relation to That 70s Show.
Yeah.
Bill Kelso, he's the chief archaeologist for the Jamestown settlement. He found Jamestown, the original settlement out there in Virginia. And when I went out there, I was able to make contact with him, and he took me out and showed me my grandfather's grave out
How
there.
cool is
that?
that?
Yeah, he passed away in, I think, I have to look up the date, but he was he wasn't there in the 1607 settlement, but he came later in the 1600s and was one of the administrators there at Jamestown. So
that's some awesome family history.
Yeah, it is. Revolutionary War, War of 1812, all the way through. I have relatives and grandfathers in all of them.
Huh.
So
my grandfather told me that my people came from German goat herders, so don't get up.
Probably not a lot of written records on that one.
Yeah, just old German goat herders. Like, thanks.
Yeah, I had some. I had a grandfather that was involved in fighting. I mean, this sounds cliche, but literally fighting pirates in the Caribbean.
Oh, yeah.
In the early 1800s. And
wasn't that Jefferson too?
Yeah. Well, yeah, partially. Yeah. And so there's a lot of history in my family going back to like those original events. I had no clue about it till someone got me a trial for Ancestry.com once, and I was like, okay, this is limited, so I'm just going to sit and pine over this for hours and exhaust every free minute.
Right.
And I found all kinds of interesting stuff.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I did the 23andMe, found out I'm 2% African.
Yeah, I imagine we all are a little bit.
Yeah. That goes with what I knew.
Yeah.
This is one thing I find interesting about just in these stats that pulled up at that time. Population of the 13 colonies was 2.5-ish million people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't like, and then of that, what, 30 or 40% were for revolution? Like, it wasn't.
No, yeah, it was a very controversial issue because you have to remember, especially up in New England, where the British government they were relying on the British Empire for markets
Right.
to buy and sell goods, and you know, the taxation's one thing, but you know, your livelihood's another thing. And there's a common misconception amongst most Americans who know what's going on, which is apparently only 53% of people,
Yeah.
that there was universal support, you know, and
Right.
that was not the case at all. And there's a reason why they had to write the Federalist Papers when they created the Constitution. They had to convince people that this was going to be okay. That thing, you know, even after the Revolution, people were still like, this was probably going to fail.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there's always going to be that kind of apprehension at the very beginning of creating a whole new government with a whole new system, which has never been tried before. People are going to be like, I'm skeptical about that.
I will keep dealing with the tax. Well, look at us now. And I'm not calling for overthrow of our government. I'm just going to say that off the go. But we put up with a lot through all the taxation we do.
Yeah, it's a lot.
You know, I mean, if you're top tax rate, and by the time all your other taxes, you're paying 60% of your income in taxes. Like, we're a long way from where we started, for sure.
And of course, the big argument back then was not necessarily just taxes, but the fact that they had no say over the taxes that were being levied.
Right.
You know, and theoretically, we have some say over here. No, the spam risk.
Oh, okay.
202 area code. Do you know where that is?
Washington, D.C.
Is it? Oh, yeah. That's probably the RNC.
Yeah. We hear you talking.
Yeah. But, you know, the big argument, of course, was the fact that they had no power to do anything. You know, they dissolved the colonial assemblies after, you know, rebellion started being discussed and everything else. So, but I urge people, if you ever want a good picture of kind of the pre-revolutionary and revolutionary period, visit Colonial Williamsburg in Virginia.
Okay.
It's awesome out there.
You know, I've only ever been to D.C. once, and it was for my
Me too.
It was for my uncle's wedding.
Mhm.
And I wasn't old enough to drive, so I had to fly from here to DFW.
Mhm.
Well, then my flight gets delayed, and so standard Texarkana stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so then my aunt has to pick me up at DFW. I have to sleep at her house. Takes me back to the airport the next morning or whatever, because I'm meeting my family out there. And so then I get there. My stepdad's like, "Hey man, go to the hotel, get dressed, meet us at the church. You know, just make sure you get enough cash for a cab." And like that was, so I get there, we do all the wedding stuff, all that. You know, you would be proud, traditional Catholic wedding.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. How long did that take?
It was a minute.
Yeah.
And anyway, because, you know, that half of my family's Catholic. And then, so we do all that and then do all the reception and stuff. Well, the next day I'm flying home.
Yeah.
And so on the way to the airport, my stepdad's like, "Oh, you got to see all the monuments." So he had the cab drive us as close as we could get to each one. He's like, "There's that, there's that, there's that. Now you've seen it. Be safe."
I went one time. My sister lived in Virginia for a while near Fredericksburg, and we took a train from there. My wife and I took a train from there to Arlington, and then onto D.C. And I wanted to see the U.S. History Museum, the Smithsonian, so bad.
Sure.
Yeah, got there and it was closed for renovation.
That's great.
So I saw the Space and Aeronautics Museum, which I think is. Oh, yeah. If you ever want to see a great museum that really highlights the accomplishments of the country, the Space and Aeronautics Museum is awesome. You know, and you walk in there and the Wright brothers plane is there, and then you walk around the corner and the Saturn V rocket is right there like 50 years later. It's like, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, the time period of all that.
Super quick.
I mean.
Yeah, it's just a blink.
And which is, you know, as you know, around here, we've got the controversy about data centers and all that. I'm interested to see what's happening 50 years from now.
Yeah. It's going to be something else.
Unless God's like, y'all have gone too far and
I
puts
think
the Tower of Babel move on us.
I think we've got a power plant, a big solar installation, data center. I know that I think is it Dixie Diner. They had a big data center concern meeting
last night.
I think it's I love the data center argument because it's the one thing that everybody, no matter who you are politically or where you're at in the spectrum, everybody's like, we're buddies. There's very few things in the United States anymore where a lot of folks can agree on an issue, and that's becoming a thing. I was downtown at the farmers market a couple weeks ago, and there were a bunch of protesters down there for data centers.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I saw everybody, purple-haired, pierced people with farmers and flannel. It was everybody was down there. It was interesting.
Here's my stance. I don't really have a stance on it yet. I don't know enough to know what I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I'm big on private property rights, and I'm big on, if you wanted that land and you didn't want a data center there, you also had the opportunity to buy it.
I didn't.
Well, right. if you had the funds, you did.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Personally, I didn't either.
Yeah.
But, and so there's that side of me.
Yeah.
And I think if you can do, and then there's the side of me that's like, this is coming.
Yeah.
This is coming. And if it's not here, it'll be somewhere else. And then we'll just miss out on the opportunity.
I just pictured like driving through like a really pretty part of Arkansas. And they used to be really pretty and beautiful fields and the Ouachita Mountains. And you just see like data centers and solar farms everywhere. It's kind of like driving out west and seeing windmills.
Yeah.
You have this beautiful vista and you look out and you see these big windmills sticking up over, and it's just, I remember my dad, he used to go out west constantly and hunt, and, he saw the evolution. He went out there since the 70s,
yeah.
And out west, Colorado and places. And he slowly would just get angrier and angrier as more and more infrastructure popped up.
Because half of them aren't even spinning on those windmills.
Yeah. And, when he passed away and he was cremated, my thought was I was going to go spread some of his ashes out on the ranch he used to hunt out in Colorado. And so I looked up the ranch, and the owner of the ranch had passed away. And I Googled the name of the ranch, and it's a subdivision now.
Yeah.
They bulldoze it all and turn it into subdivision.
You show up and you're dumping ashes in the street.
In one jar. Yeah. Sir, can I borrow your backyard? My dad used to hunt here.
He's like, what? Don't worry about it.
Don't ask questions.
It's between him and the earth.
Also, we're going to need you to wait to mow until after the next rain. But yeah, it's I think for some people it's just a preservation of life in the area, and
for sure.
It's a concern to see where you grew up, changing it. People already get concerned when they build new buildings, and new roads and places, and someone talking about plopping a data center for something that people already distrust to begin with.
Yeah.
AI is controversial,
Well, after the 2020 medical debacle,
yeah,
there is no trust in our government.
There was a strong feeling amongst Americans that what little idea we had that maybe they had this under control quickly fell out the window.
Like, you know what? We better be paying attention.
I mean, it was a time period. It's hard to believe it was real. I look back on that time period now, and it almost feels like a dream that we lived through that.
When's the last time you heard about the hantavirus? Right? How long did that make the news cycle? 10 days?
Yeah, a week.
Like, we're going to have to shut down. Everybody's like, the hell we are.
Yeah. Well, and the messaging was so poor.
Yeah.
All around, and I know why it was poor is because they were like, oh, we don't know what to do. Let's just throw crap at a wall and see what sticks.
I saw one guy on TikTok's like, that boat's out there. It better never hit the shore.
Yeah.
You stay out there till you live or die, but you better get through with it.
And it's that being said, it's amazing to me that we were able to climb out of that and somewhat get somewhat back to normalcy. I was worried there for a while we would never be that life would never return to what it was.
I was
before
worried
that.
we'd given in to tyranny.
Yeah,
and which is what we're here talking about today that we came out of. And I think it's if you've been paying, I'm sure you have been paying attention to the World Cup stuff. And and so
I watched the match.
Yeah, I did too. Somebody's like, you going to church? And I said, watching the football.
Yeah.
And, with that, we're seeing people come here and be like, oh, this place is amazing.
Oh, they love it. Yeah.
Oh, you guys, okay, we get it. You're not who we've been lied about. You're not, oh, you have air conditioning and ice in the drinks and you'll give us a refill and all the things which you've traveled, all those things don't exist anywhere else. I mean, they do, but not to the extent of which we are accustomed. So and that's maybe when I hear people just burning our country down, it's so horrible. I'm like, where have you been?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I promise you, it is not.
What kills me is people say that, and I'm not under any kind of illusions that the United States is perfect.
No.
And any learned person knows that.
Right.
But this idea that the United States has flaws. I hate the United States, but I don't hate these other places because they don't have flaws. Every single country that's ever existed has always been prosperous at the expense of something else.
Yeah.
And this concept that we are exceptionally evil is historically inaccurate.
Yeah.
I mean, we have our evils, but it's a government constituted by man, so of course it's going to have evils.
If
you know,
we were truly evil, we would take over the world.
And of course, economics has made that difficult because everybody relies on some, you know, and I would argue it's kind of interesting if you're trying to, you know, after World War II, the United States and the rest of the world, we are going through a time period right now called the Long Peace, is what it's called. Mm-hmm. It's kind of, they call it the Second Pax Romana, which is that 200-year peace in Rome when they stopped killing each other for a little while. And what's interesting is that the economic reliance on each other around the world has actually probably lent the biggest benefit to that.
It's extended the peace for sure.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, I could steamroll you, but is that really in my interest economically? And, you know, and it's a double-edged sword. You want to have an economy that helps your people.
Right.
And then that saves jobs for your people. But there is a benefit for people being reliant on you and you being reliant on others about some things.
Which is what scares some of these people about us saying, we'll control the Western Hemisphere again.
Yeah.
We'll get our own oil. We'll manufacture here again. Because once that reliance isn't there, then we can say, yeah, we'll do what we want.
Yeah, I think it's a lot harder than people make it out to be. Though.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying I know the answer.
Yeah.
Well, so going into this weekend, what are the big takeaways of 250-year republic, the oldest constitutional republic to have ever been?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we're a really old country. Everybody's like, oh, America's so new. It's like, no. Most of Europe wasn't created till the 1880s.
Right.
You know, the land was there for forever, obviously, but the countries are young.
Come and go.
Germany wasn't even a country till the late 1800s.
Right.
You know, neither was Italy. So the big takeaway is that people need to learn how to love the country for its foundations.
Right.
You know, and I think most, even people in the past, like, I'll give you a great example, Frederick Douglass. Okay. Brilliant human being.
Yeah.
You know, and was able to get himself out of slavery, that situation he was in, which was highly unique for the time period.
Right.
You know, and because people were largely because people were so impressed with his intellect. He was a really smart person. And he had his obvious criticisms of the United States. Okay. But he recognized, and I think rightfully so, that the foundations for what the country stand for, regardless of the misapplication of some of those foundations, whether you're talking about liberty or whatever, the foundations leave room for growth and they leave room for perfection.
Right.
And you know, this idea that the country is bad and this and this and this and this, I think that the thing to take away from this weekend is that the country has done things that might not be good, but the foundations the country was constructed on is inherently brilliant.
And we've self-corrected.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
We've self-corrected. The fact that we create a constitution and at the very end we were like, you know, by the way, let's make sure we sprinkle in some way in there for us to change that thing just in case stuff changes, right? That in itself is brilliant. I think that the amendment process is the most brilliant part of the Constitution.
And you know,
even though it rarely happens. You know?
But okay, I'm good with it rarely happening.
It's supposed to. That's what he says. You know, governments shouldn't be changed with
a
knee-jerk reactions. That's right. There's a reason why our government runs inefficiently. It's created like that on purpose.
You know, I need to get you in here when I have Denny Bird on in here sometime. He can, you know, I've read the Federalist Papers and all that.
I read some of them.
But he can say, well, in Federalist, da-da-da-da-da, and then just, and it's truly amazing because I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know, man. But
I remember 10, 51, and 70, and beyond that, I have to really think.
Yeah, well, he'll just rattle them off. But, you know, that's the thing. It is, but that's what he says. It's supposed to be slow. Congress is supposed to work slow. This is the way. We don't want them just making changes.
You don't want efficient government. Efficient government is government that doesn't think and just does. And you don't want It's like I tell everybody else, the most efficient governments in the world are dictatorships.
Yeah.
It's really efficient.
Highly efficient.
It's highly efficient. You do what I say or you die. That's a really efficient system.
Right.
It's more efficient than let's discuss this. And the reason why systems that discuss things are inefficient is because human beings are always right. They know they're always right. And you get people who know they're always right into a room, they're going to be always right for months.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that before we make decisions that affect 340 million people, that we stop and think for a minute, and that there is hesitation there before we do the thing.
Now, are some of the people in Congress people that I would consider their views absolutely whacked out and crazy? Yes. But are my views to some of the people in Congress whacked out and crazy? Also, yes. So if there's someone that represents me and somebody that represents them, they can battle it out, and then hopefully somewhere in the middle, we can come up with something that's good for everybody.
Yeah,
that's the ideal, right?
And that's the idea of the bicameral legislature. Right. The House is full of the wackos. It truly is.
Well, 17th Amendment changed it, though.
Well, the House is full of the wackos, and the Senate is supposed to be there as the cooling off of the wackos in the House, because people in the House, they represent roughly 700 to 800,000 people in their district.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have people who are extremely hyper partisan, whatever you want to call it, because they represent a little district somewhere tucked away in a corner of a state.
Yeah.
Well, a senator, he's like, okay, I represent the entire state. And if you're talking about Texas and you're a representative representing Dallas County and that area, that district, it's a lot different than if you're a Texas state senator who represents the person living in El Paso, down in Brownsville, all the way up to Texarkana and back over to Dalhart, right? So you have to take into account so many more things. You can't afford to be as crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you can't. Well,
no.
What? But I still say that's why we have to get away from direct election. We need.
You want the state legislators to pick them again?
Yep.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
Because you know our state legislator.
Mm-hmm.
I know our state legislator. I've got his number on my phone.
Yeah.
I'd call it. Be like, hey man, why is our senator doing that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Let me see if anybody else is having this concern.
Yeah.
Well, and then if there was enough of it, hey, you got to come home.
Yeah.
You know, we're not sending you back.
Well,
it's the in my mind. It would, like I said, I don't know, just a little Rateliffology, but it's the last break set for the state. Like, hey, make sure we're being represented up there.
Well, one of the reasons why we got away from it was because of the corruption involved in the process and everything else.
That makes sense.
You know, and that's one reason why the presidential elections became more democratic over time, is because, and you could thank Andrew Jackson in large part for a lot of that, despite his shortcomings, obviously.
Yeah.
But originally it was just people got into a smoke-filled room with their cigars and their whiskey glasses, and they just pick people, and you had no primary process. You had no caucuses in the states that did that. And it was a very undemocratic system. And you were just force-fed these candidates that were spoon-fed to you by parties, you know.
Right.
And
which is what we get a lot now.
Yeah, you do. But the system, Trump's a great example of this. The system is designed to also allow the cult of personality from outside of the fringes to make way into the election process.
If you can get some traction.
If the Republican Party was just picking candidates, then Donald Trump wouldn't be president, you know, and so you know what I'm saying, right? And that has allowed people who the parties would normally buck to go out there on their own and say, hey, I'm just going to do this regardless of the party, forcing the party eventually to accept them because they become popular,
or not, hey, you didn't make it,
right?
Oh, you know, you've got that with that Jen McRaffoon trying to be an independent or a write-in candidate for governor right now.
No.
Which she came in here and I talked to her.
Yeah.
She's a pleasant lady. I liked everything she had to say.
And I like the idea. I like the idea of I love the concept. And I think somebody in Shreveport mayor several years ago ran as a nonpartisan,
right?
You know, and I like the concept. I do. It's just the two-party system is so. It hijacks so much, and you know, even in Texas, you've got to get 10% of the signatures of the people that voted in the last governor election to make it on the ballot in the first place.
Right? Yeah, and that was her deal. She was trying to get 100,000.
Yeah, and that's it's ridiculous. You know, there's no reason why a person running, leave it to California for their shortcomings. They have. If you want to run for governor of California, your name will be on the ballot.
Throw your name out there.
That's right. You know, and you know, that's why they got 60 people on the ballot. You know, and of course they have a top two runoff. You know, but I think that's
most. I mean, look at who made it.
Yeah, right. And I dig it because it does allow people. I think it allows people who are moderate voices who are people who see the two-party system as corrupt or whatever you want to call it, like the person you're talking about, to be able to have a chance.
Well, even
and we should be the ones that make the choice whether or not she has a chance or not, not somebody who says, well, we're going to make the rules because we're the two dominant parties and we're just going to keep you out. You know what I mean?
Well, even in the presidential election, if you can afford to file, in every state,
Kanye West, Arkansas,
I mean, go ahead and file. You can be on the ballot.
That's right.
I mean,
one state, but you're still on there.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you can afford that in every state, then that's on you. Go live that American dream if that's yours. Hey, one thing, but before we get out of here, talking about the representation of representatives and the 800,000 or whatever. What was, and you might not know this number offhand, but I think you will be more comfortable with it than I am. Originally, what was it like? Representative for every 30 or 50,000 people, or something?
I don't know what it was originally, but
it was less, right?
It wasn't until the 1920s that we locked the number.
Okay.
Prior to the 1920s in the progressive era, we would grow the number of representatives in the Congress every census.
Okay.
But eventually we saw that was stupid because you would have eventually you'd have like 1,000 people if you just kept adding and adding and adding and adding. Right?
So I've got someone coming on in a week or two that is part of the go back to the original once 5,000 legislatures or whatever, which is wild.
Like they want like a giant, huge, like Athenian, 35,000 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't really know much about them. I'm excited about having the conversation, though.
It'll be a great conversation.
Because I just don't, I will do more research before I get there. But yeah, Athenian's correct. Like, hey, we're going to sit here and we're going to battle it out. Really, in my mind, I see those Asian parliaments and stuff where they're just slapping each other down front and whatnot.
Yeah. That, and getting in fist fights and stuff over legislation, and I think the founders, when they created the system, created a brilliant system in the fact that it does protect the average American from the tyranny of the majority.
Yeah.
And I think the more and more people you put into the system to make decisions, the more threat there is that you're going to have kind of this majoritarianism, which is what James Madison argues against in Federalist Paper number 10 when he talks about factions, where he talks about the dangers of the majority or mob rule oppressing the minority. And the idea that we have a republic which exists to put representatives in power chosen by the masses puts a fail-safe in there to block some of that extremist activity. I'm sorry, but when people get in large groups, there's a mob mentality. It's just how we are. It's human being. It's human nature.
Because of the way we're set up, to your point, is the reason why minorities have rights.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. I'm not talking about just
minority of anything, minority of a religion, opinion, doesn't matter what it
dog
is.
Dog owners.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever that minority group you're in.
And it's because the way our system works is that when you are a politician, you're being elected, you have to cater to more than just, say, your extreme base or just your base. You have to get at least a few people on your side that you might not necessarily always agree with.
Right. Because you're going to answer to that vote.
Correct. And I think that system, despite its shortcomings, people criticize all kinds of stuff in our system, where it's electoral college, the way we elect senators or whatever else.
Electoral college is the only thing that keeps us from a 3-state system.
Well, I always tell everybody, when I show the electoral college, I always show a population distribution map, and there's more people like in LA County than the entire Midwest combined, it's a system that does allow for protectionism there for people. And I think if you're trying to figure out a way to govern 340 million people, I think it does a pretty good job, and the fact that it does a pretty good job is it's been able to sustain itself since 1787.
Yep.
And with minor problems such as a giant war for several years where we killed each other and everything else. But
and I read an article the other day where that's when the Republic ended.
And it's the Civil War.
Uh-huh.
That was the birth of the United States of America. The modern United States of America was created after the Civil War.
After Lincoln went a little bit.
And if you look at the way the country is run, probably the Great Depression.
Yeah.
Definitely. After the Great Depression, that changed the bargain between the people and the government fundamentally. Yeah. And people wanted it. FDR was extremely popular.
Yeah.
But sometimes, in the throes of crises, you look back and say, maybe we should have adjusted something a little bit different there, you know?
Oh, for sure. All right. Let's get out of here. Hit us with 250 years, what it means in the past, historically, what it has meant, and what it means going forward.
I think that the creation of this country is probably the single greatest event to ever happen in the history of mankind. And we have an opportunity to continue that legacy in a way that is beneficial to all of us. But we also have equal probability of continuing it in a way that is detrimental to all of us. And I think that people need to get back to the foundations of what it means to be an American at its core values. Not saying disregard the past, not saying disregard our faults, but I think understanding and being alerted as far as knowing what this country was founded on is extremely important. And I think that we have the opportunity to continue those ideals. But at the same time, I think that because I was going back to that Cato Institute poll again, because so few Americans know anything about who they are. And that's one of the big criticisms by Europeans a lot of times, that Americans know nothing about America. And I think that we also have an equal opportunity to really screw it up.
Yeah.
And I hope we don't. And I urge everybody, teach your kids about the country somewhat, you know, and that doesn't mean you have to give them this idealized ivory tower view of the nation. Right. But the kids have conversations about the kids about what it means.
Because I know your dad did.
Yeah.
My dad did.
Yeah. I have them with my daughters, you know, and because that's
my daughter will come tell me how, well, the teacher said, but I let her know what you say. I'm like, well, we got to be careful about that a little bit.
But, you know, when the Constitution is written, you know, it literally in the preamble of the Constitution, it talks about securing the liberties of, you know, of the future.
Yeah.
Our posterity. Yeah. And that is important. And I think that championing civics and education is something that we've gotten away from, that we need to get back to.
Even if you look at the new Texas standards, they're kind of wild.
It's different. And I think that people need to humble themselves before, I say before the feet, but before the minds of the men that wrote this stuff and the men that created these systems. And
the brain power that's in these documents
it's astonishing.
Unmatched.
Yeah. Basing it on very little of history, because prior to the founding of the country, all people knew was if you were born, you can't cuss on the show, can you?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, if you were born a shit shoveling peasant, then your children were going to be a shit shoveling peasant, and so were you the rest of your life, the rest of their lives, and every generation after that. And I think the one thing to take away from the United States and its creation is that we are the first beacon in history to say, just because you're born a shit shoveling peasant doesn't mean you always have to be that.
Right.
And people can think of all kinds of ways and reasons why they don't get what they want in life or everything else, but the opportunity is there by and large quite often.
Okay.
And I think that people need to learn to love the country again.
Let's leave it with that.
All right.
Thanks for being here, dude.
All right,
That's
thanks,
Hunter
man.
Davis, everybody. All right. I hope God blesses each and every one of you today.
Thank you.